showing you a design that I absolutely love. It is a 4D spinning ballerina that's been on kind of my radar to do for years. I've been having this idea to do a spinning ballerina, and I have a couple other ballerina designs, and I'll put links to them, even some other ones that are 4-dimensional. But there's an extra special element to this design. There has been a movement over the past, well, I'd say more in the public spotlight in the past year or so, for having ballet shoes that match the skin tones of people of color and black ballerinas, which is just amazing. The lines of a ballet shoe that match the skin tone of the ballerina and the dancer is so much more elegant, and it is so much more representative of all of the different people that do ballet. And I've been watching so many different people on Instagram that have just been overwhelmed with joy at having big brands like Hotpinkzebrapolish and everything carry different colors of ballet shoes and point shoes, which is just amazing. And I will put some of my favorite ballerinas that are either black or of color in the description box below, their Instagram accounts, because definitely check them out, support them, like their posts, share this amazing thing that is happening. Also, don't forget to love this video too, like, comment, share, all of that great stuff means so much to me. So I hope you guys, I hope this brings awareness to something that I think has been kind of shadowed for a very long time, and it's just a beautiful thing. So I hope you guys love it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
So we're going to start with an overlay of a shimmery pink acrylic, and this is like your classic ballet pink. This is the color of tights I wore all the years I did ballet, and it's just one of those, I don't know, it's synonymous with ballet to me, is this particular color. And now we're going to be encapsulating that with a layer of clear acrylic to make sure that it is nice and strong and smooth and all of that great stuff, and then filing it into shape. And this nail is super short because the actual dancer coming off of it will add all of the length. So for this point, we can keep the nail nice and sport length. So now we're going to sculpt the base for our ballerina on a nail form backing. And this is like, if you look at a person, it's like a little, like a paper version of them as far as the shape goes. It can be very thin at this stage. You don't have to worry about anything besides getting a base of the outlines of like the silhouette of your ballerina down. So we've got the head, neck, torso, hips, then do one of the legs. So this is the leg that's going to be on point, going down straight, going down the form. And my ballerina is not going to have both legs down in like a high fifth. She's going to have a passe. So we're going to put the first leg is going to be sculpted on this, but the second one is going to be sculpted separately and then added in later. So then we've got that little bit, smooth it out. You don't have to worry about thickness too much at this stage. You just really want to focus on making sure that the shapes are right, but you do need to make sure that it is thick enough that it isn't going to break or bend. So if you do have a spot that's really, really low, like I did by her hip, then you may need to add a little bit more acrylic to that just so that it'll be strong enough to transport onto your wire and to glue it down. And so then I'm going to be sculpting that other leg that is bent at about a 90-degree angle, a little bit tighter than a 90, with the point shoe on the end of it. I ended up sculpting her leg too close to her, so I couldn't sculpt her foot in quite yet, but I will add that foot in a moment. And then we're going to be doing her arms. Arms raised up above her head. Very classic. I wanted to keep the pose of my dancer to be one of those like iconic ballet poses. And so it's like she's in the middle of a pirouette. And that works out because this nail, she spins. So it's like she's exactly in the middle of a pirouette. Then add a little bit more to her torso. I'm kind of working in some of those beginning shapes of where the 3D will come in eventually. I can't help myself. I can't just leave it flat. I have to keep adding things. I see a spot, I'm like, oh, I should just add a little bit more right there. It'll make it easier later. But we're going to be doing both arms, left and then right. Actually, it's her right and then left. Depends on if you're looking at it or if you're looking at her perspective, but you know, there's a second one. And then as you're working on everything here and you're adding little bits of acrylic, keep in mind that when you go to add things like that leg, it's not going to be flat in line with everything. So if you weren't going to sculpt, if you want to sculpt like one arm in front of her and one up, then you'd want to sculpt the arm that's going to be in front of her separately. But once you're done with all of this, then you're going to glue her onto a piece of wire so that her foot, hip, and the middle of her neck all align, which is so that piece of wire goes straight down. And then you're going to be adding another layer of acrylic to the back just to begin to secure all of that together. And as you are sculpting all of this around that piece of wire, that'll add a lot of bulk to the back of her leg. So that'll do some of your 3D sculpting for you. You just have to cover the wire, and then that part is actually pretty good. But you're going to add a lot of layers to this ballerina. So just keep that in mind, that this isn't a quick design to do by any means. This is a kind of tedious process because, at least for me, in order to build in the muscle structure and all of the different bits, I like to do it kind of in little sections at a time. So as you can see, I'm building up her leg and then up into her gluteus maximus. And then I'm going to be doing the front of her thigh and adding all of these different sections piece by piece. And one thing that I noticed is as I was sculpting it, I did like a layer where she was very, very thin, and then I wanted to go through and correct that and give her more of a natural human shape. And I added a little bit more structure and a little bit more shape to my ballerina so that she wasn't so stick thin. And you want her to really make sure like she has plenty of muscles to hold her up in all of these different positions. I remember how strong I felt when I did ballet for hours a week, and I haven't gone back there, to say the least. But we're going to be doing all of these different shapes on her. Make sure you sculpt in shoulder blades. And on the internet, you can find just about anything on the internet, but on the internet, you can find photos. And if you just like Google ballerina passe or passe releve, then you can find pictures of front, side, back of somebody in that particular pose, and you can use those pictures as reference for body shape, structure, how the muscles move in each of these positions, because that can really be some beneficial information if you want to sculpt with as much realism as possible. So just keep adding all of these layers. It is definitely a process. Like I said, every time I would think I was done and I would do a 360 on her and look at her from all angles, I would realize that she still needed some shape in one spot or another. So if that happens to you, don't worry about it. Just know that it's all part of the process and that you just need to keep adding some acrylic. On the opposite side, if you all of a sudden realize that you sculpted, her leg way too thick and you need to take some off, a E-file is the best method for that. So just go ahead and take like an under the nail cleaner bit, and preferably a fine grit bit or a medium grit bit at maximum. Definitely not a coarse bit or extra coarse, but a fine is probably the recommended, or even like a cuticle cleaner bit. That would also work. If you have one that's a little bit more coarse for a cuticle cleaner, then you can do that and just very slowly take product off. Don't do anything too harsh or abrupt, because you might end up breaking a piece of her, or just taking product off way too rapidly and then having to build it back up, and you might be building it up and taking it off and building it up and taking it off, which can be a never-ending process if you're not careful. So after that, we've got her other legs glued down, and then it's going to be sculpted in. Some of these details that I'm sculpting in are going to be somewhat lost once I add her leotard, but for the most part, the more details you can add in each layer, the better. So just keep going through and adding details as you see necessary, and just keep looking at it from every single side, because you never know what you're going to see that needs a little bit more sculpting on it, a little bit more shape, acrylic, whatever it needs. And then also, once you get to a certain point, you're also going to need to add her hair. So for me, I gave her a black classic ballet bun, but I have to make sure her head is sculpted thick enough first. And as you saw from the back angle, it really needed a little bit more shape to that too. Don't overdo it though, because then once you add her hair, you don't want her head to look disproportionately large either. So we're going to be doing some detail on her hands. And everything as far as the detail goes, like I said, I'm trying to go as, detailed as possible as per my usual, but I didn't want it to look over detailed either, because that wasn't really the point of this particular design. I want it to look realistic but simplified, if that makes sense. So I'm not like sculpting in individual fingers. That would be a little too much, but I'm trying to keep it kind of on the simple side while keeping everything in line. So facial features, I didn't sculpt in any facial features. I also didn't add any facial features. I didn't add them later on really either. I just kept her face blank. This isn't any one particular person. This is just trying to keep it very, I guess, purposeful. The point of this design has a purpose, so I didn't want to overdo it in one way or another to distract from that purpose. So now I'm going to go through with that same color that I used for her for the nail I'm going to use for her leotard and also for her tutu once we get to that point. And that's going to be sculpted off the nail, or off the nail. It's going to be on a nail form backing. But just sculpt a leotard. There's a bunch of different styles. You can go shopping on Capezio. Check out some of their skin tone match point shoes and ballet tights if you want to. They have many colors of tights now all of a sudden, not so much for the point shoes. There's just a few, but they do have them. So, you know, that's definitely something. And now, like I said, on the nail form backing, we're going to be sculpting our bits of tutu. Just do individual sections one at a time and then pat them out. I did 4 total, and they don't have to be perfectly flat. So sculpt them super thin, and then when you pick them up, they'll kind of get a natural curve of their own if they're sculpted very almost paper thin. Put a little bit of nail glue on the inner circle of one of the pieces. Hold that up to your ballerina so that it'll glue it on in place right above her hips. And then do the next one on the opposite side. If you are doing 4 like I did, you're going to do right, left, front, back, or a pattern like that. And so then glue the second one on. Hold it in place. As you can see, they don't line up perfectly. They have like a little bit of a wave to them. And you want that because then when you go to spin her, it looks like her dress is twirling. It is the coolest effect, especially if you spin her quickly. So do front and back, and then do the front and then do the back to fill in. And if you have any spots that, like that one little piece I just added in at the end, there's a little hole in it. You don't want that hole to be there. So take more of that light pink acrylic and fill in not only any holes if you happen to have any holes, but also the little gap between the tutu and her body, because it doesn't line up completely perfectly. There's just a little bit of funkiness. I'm also taking a little bit of nail glue and gluing my pieces of tutu together a little more securely, just so that they don't have any of the really big gaps in them. So we're just going to fill in anything that's necessary with some of that ballet pink. And this ballet pink is one of my absolute favorites. It is from Double Dip. It's the color Sugar Swizzle, and it has stolen my heart from the instant I saw it. Like I said, this gives me some pretty strong nostalgia feelings from all the years that I did dance. After we have all of her done, then we're going to cut off the extra wire from the top of it and add 3 beads or a bar bead. I would actually recommend doing a bar bead because then you don't have to worry about keeping those little beads together, but I didn't have one on hand, so 3 it is. And then I'm going to be just kind of pressing some clear acrylic on the top so the beads can't fall off. Cut off the extra wire from her toe, and then flip over the nail and create a groove underneath. This is for where those beads are going to sit. So you want the little groove to be about the same width as the beads are. So just use an under the nail cleaner bit if you've got one, and create that little indent. And then using some little bit of builder gel, I'm going to place that into the groove, and then I'm going to get my beads lined up and pressed into that builder gel, and do this very delicately. You don't want the builder gel to hit your wire. It just needs to touch the beads. So if it hits the wire, it's going to make it so that your ballerina won't spin. And the whole idea behind this is that she spins. So you want to make sure that the wire stays loose. And I'm even spinning her a little bit as I was doing that flash curing to make sure that she didn't get covered up at all, or that the wire didn't touch the gel. And now we're going to cover up the beads with some acrygel, some clear acrygel. Go up and over the beads. Make sure again that the acrygel does not touch your wire. I spun her again just to make sure. Cure that once more. Make sure it goes into your lamp though, so it's fully cured. And now we get to add whatever details we want to our ballerina. So I first decided to paint the underside of the shank with a lighter pink, because some of the ballet shoes, the point shoes that I've seen that have been flesh tone, still have that bright pink sole. And at first I was thinking I liked that plan, and then later I painted over it because I changed my mind. But that is up to you. That's kind of a styling preference. And at first, I thought that just one little homage to the ballet pink was nice on the shoe, but then I realized it ruined the lines that I love so much, so I changed it back. And I'm going to make her shoes slightly darker than her skin tone is. That just kind of warms it up, and it does draw attention to the shoes. And I guess that's another thing that's contrary to my love of these skin tone shoes, is that there's no attention drawn to them. They just flow with the whole line, and they just make everything look so unified and beautiful. But I really wanted to get my point across, I guess you could say, and I wanted the fact that her shoes are that beautiful, rich skin tone to be visible. So I made them just slightly darker. And then I'm going to take that darker brown that I used for her shoes and do the outlines on her with that as well. So some little outlines around her tutu like a shadow, and then that's around her, not her tutu, but her leotard. And then I also realized I forgot to add the strap of her leotard going up and around her neck like a halter top. So I'm going to do that with paint. You don't even know, but in the end, you can't tell that it was paint instead of the acrylic that matches. But just don't forget that. Add any details you see. If you want to add a little bit of facial features, you can do that. Otherwise, apply some matte top coat so that the acrylic paint that was added is nice and I don't know, wear proof. And now she's all done. And if you want to add some glam to this, or some more glam, I could say, we're going to cover the natural nail, or not the natural nail, but the nail tip with jewelry gel, and then a layer of gel sealer or gel top coat, and press some crystals in. The crystals I used were a combination of colors. I'm going to start with some really pretty teardrops that are kind of an off-white. I've got 2 big ones and then 2 petal shapes that are smaller. And then I'm going to use some little half pearls. And these are like the oil spill half pearls that have a section of multicolor on them. And I'm just going to kind of fill in and create a symmetrical little design with my crystals. I like a symmetrical design for this particular nail art because a lot of stuff that is done for a ballerina, there's symmetry involved for sure. And so I like to kind of keep the order in place with this. So I'm going to do all those little half pearls, and then after that, cure it, and this nail is done. I absolutely love that. Like I said before, check out, I will put links to I think I have at least 3. I'm going to go through my Instagram account and find all of the black ballerinas and ballerinas of color and people of color that I follow on Instagram. I'll put links to all of their accounts because go follow them. Some of the things they post are just so heartwarming and inspirational and beautiful. So yeah, and it's always fun to see people do amazing things. So check them out, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.